Hello, everyone, and welcome to A Day in the Life. Today, I'm joined by my friend Nicole, who is a veterinarian, and she's one of my favorite people from college. I always thought of her as my mini me if I was more scientific. And Nicole's dream, ever since I've known her, is to become a veterinarian, and now she's doing her intern rotations. And so I'm really looking forward to hearing how that's going. Welcome, Nicole.
Hi, Rachel. Thanks for having me on your show.
Yeah. So let's start off by talking about what you do every day. What are your main responsibilities?
So, I graduated from vet school in May, so I'm a baby doctor, and I accepted a position as a small animal rotating intern at the University of Georgia. So, basically, I'm doing an additional year of training with a little bit more responsibility now. So, I rotate through all the specialty services in the hospital, and so kind of my responsibilities vary depending on what service I'm on. But mainly, it's seeing cases, of having primary case responsibility, and then also teaching students. So it's kind of like a multifactorial role as being a doctor, but then also being a teacher.
Well, that's really cool. You're already teaching. I didn't know that. So is that like extra year intern position that you're doing? Is that something required as part of the track to become a veterinarian, or is that like something you decided to do?
So it's definitely something I decided to do. So when you graduate, you have the option of just going straight into practice, or some residencies you don't have to do an internship, and then other residencies require an internship. So some people choose to do an internship just for additional training, extra experience under the guidance of higher up faculty and specialists. I'm specifically doing one just because I want to specialize. So it's kind of helping me on my path towards being a specialist.
Yeah, and can you talk a little bit more about that and how it's helping you become a specialist?
Yeah, so I specifically want to specialize in veterinary neurology, which is the study of neurologic conditions in small animals and also large animals. So, after you graduate from veterinary school, you do a 1 year rotating internship. So, you rotate through all the services just like you did your clinical year of vet school with a little bit more responsibility, like I talked about. And then from there, hopefully, I will apply for residency and accept one. But they also have specialty internships that are specifically in the field you're interested in. So if I don't match for residency after my first year, which is pretty common, I'll do a specialty internship. And then hopefully from there, go on to do a residency.
Cool. So what does a veterinarian neurologist do?
So they do a lot of different things. Common diseases that they handle are like herniated discs. So dachshunds specifically are very commonly, they are called chondrodystrophic dogs. So their discs degenerate a lot faster than other dogs. So they commonly will herniate discs, which is like kind of like slipping a disc in people. So they can vary from just having some back pain to like being completely paralyzed. And so veterinary neurologists, they will do procedures like a hemilaminectomy where they go in and remove that disc material. They also study seizure disorders, which is my special interest. So idiopathic epilepsy and other like congenital brain diseases. So really in like infectious diseases, there's some autoimmune encephalopathies and things like that. So a really big wide range of diseases.
That's interesting. Yeah, I guess I never really know what neurology actually means. For some reason, I always think of like brain surgeons or something, but I know that that's even a more like that's its own specialty. So that's interesting to know. Because yeah, there's just a lot about like the different specializations that seem like they may have overlap, or maybe they don't at all, and they just for some reason sound like that to me. I don't know.
Yeah, we definitely veterinary neurologists definitely do some brain surgery. I've seen two craniotomies in my short time that were really cool. But I feel like with humans, like they can be super specialized where they're like just like pediatric oncologists or something. So we specialize, but then we're still pretty diverse. Like we'll see like all kinds of neurologic conditions, and then we also will consult with large animals sometimes too. So it can still be pretty broad for being specialized, which is crazy.
Yeah, so how do you look for symptoms in animals that so that you can figure out, their diagnosis or what to do next, how to treat them?
It can be tough. It kind of just depends on, what you're seeing. Like a dog that's, just vomiting, like it can, when you look at the differential list for vomiting, it's extremely long from like non-GI causes like kidney disease to GI causes like gastroenteritis and foreign bodies. Dogs like to eat things that they're not supposed to. So, it can be really tricky. So you kind of have to piece together all the symptoms, really, it's really specifically history and physical exam that can really help you. So like really asking the clients, like, are they still eating? Are they having diarrhea as well? So you kind of have to like really get a lot of information from the clients, because unfortunately our patients can't tell us what's going on. And then really doing like a very detailed physical examination to kind of figure out, what your diagnostic plan is going to be from there. Do we need to do abdominal x-rays? Do we need to do blood work? And then kind of taking all that together to kind of figure out what's going on with them.
You ever talk to your clients about like specific types of diets for the pets or like exercise? Is that something you look at?
Yes, I was recently on ER and I actually prescribed a prescription diet to a client, which I think is super funny, but it's something I'm actually pretty passionate about. I think there is a pretty big obesity pandemic or epidemic in animals. And so, yeah, I talk about diets all the time, like specifically weight loss diets with pets. I'm pretty passionate about being anti-grain free. There's been some links to grain free diets and cardiomyopathies, specifically in golden retrievers. So I'm pretty, advocate that animals not be on grain free diets. Also not a super big fan of raw diets. I don't think that's a pretty controversial topic, but not a super big fan of those. And then just specifically diets for like renal disease and stuff like that. There's a lot, that we can do to help manage kidney disease with diet alone. So, and then exercise. Yeah, I'm also a big fan of sports medicine and rehabilitation too. So like helping arthritic animals, like, cope with their disease by doing things like underwater treadmill therapy and stuff like that, I think is also really beneficial for our pets.
How does that work? Underwater treadmill therapy?
It's just basically a treadmill that they fill with water. It's really cool. And so it's like helps the buoyancy helps not put a lot of weight, like having them bear a lot of weight, but then they kind of just like walk in the treadmill in the water. It's kind of cool. And then we'll like smear like peanut butter or something on the glass so they have like motivation to like get to the other side. It's pretty funny.
That is funny. So going back to what you're saying about grain free, I have no real stance because I'm not like, I don't know. I'm just curious to know your thoughts, and I'm not trying to like start any arguments or anything, but like with the grain free, you're saying that you think they should be eating grain free diets or should not be eating grain free diets.
Should not. So there's been some links to dogs having heart disease, specifically golden retrievers. At the University of California, Davis, they found a lot of young golden retrievers were getting heart diseases that they shouldn't be getting until they're much older, and they linked them all to a grain-free diet. So now they're doing more research into that potential link. There's also like studies like showing like taurine deficiency in cats can cause heart disease. So kind of diet has been linked to heart disease. So I think, we need more research, but there's some preliminary evidence showing that there could be a link with that. So I kind of just try to like steer clients, away from fad diets in general and just focusing on the diets that do have research behind them whenever possible.
Yeah, definitely. So I know there's like I've been seeing them a lot at like pet stores and even now grocery stores, like the raw food packages sold by like Purina and the different the big brands. And what do you think about those raw ones?
I always just caution people. I think a lot of people when they like think raw, they feed like raw chicken and raw meat, and like those like there's risks of salmonella and there's risks of us getting infected with salmonella. Whenever we have a patient that is on a raw diet, like we have to wear gloves and be super careful. And a lot of these dogs end up getting like bacterial, like GI things going on. So I think people who use veterinary nutritionists when they're formulating their diets for their pets. That's always the best way to go whenever you're kind of going off the label, going off the norm with your diets.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, sorry. I just was like really interested in that going down a bit of a rabbit hole. So I guess just to be, we were kind of touching on this a little bit earlier, but like what kind of educational background is required to really become a veterinarian in general?
So normally you have to do a set of prerequisite courses, which can vary depending on what vet school you're going to, but usually it requires like biology and chemistry, organic chemistry, that kind of thing. And then there's like some that require genetics, others that require anatomy, nutrition, etc. So you kind of have to just see what the schools you're interested are, what the prerequisites are. So that's kind of step one. And then you also need to have animal experience hours. So I always forget, I think it's like 1,000 hours or something, but usually, you need like way more than that, just, to be a competitive applicant. And then on top of that, they're looking for people who are well-rounded, so who do other things besides school. Extracurricular activities are helpful. And then you need, decent letters of recommendation from professors and other veterinarians in the field. So kind of that's, what's required to get in. And then from there, to go on to kind of do the extra training that I'm doing, you need to have a strong GPA similar to undergrad, and then also good letters of recommendation, extracurricular activities, like all the same, just to go on and then to get a competitive internship from there.
Wow, that's a lot. Like you have to know, I'm guessing pretty ahead of time then that you want to be a veterinarian. You can't be like me and like decide at the last minute that you're going to grad school or whatever. Like you have to really know because you have like these set classes you have to take. So you got to like have had, I don't know, like when were you like researching the program that you wanted to get into so that you could figure out the classes?
It's pretty funny because I actually feel like, yeah, a lot of people are like, when they're like 3, they're like, I have always known I've wanted to be a vet, but I actually was pre-pharmacy. That's why I went to PC, was specifically because they had the pharmacy program. So I would say I like had the idea of being a vet in the back of my mind. And by in the back of my mind, I mean my father was always like, you should be a vet because you like animals, and I've always wanted to be a vet and I want to live vicariously through you. So I always like thought about it, but I was like, no, I want to be pre-pharmacy. Like I'll finish in 6 years, I'll make good money, I'll have like good hours. That's kind of what I anticipated. And then I think sophomore year, I started shadowing at the local vet in Clinton, and I kind of just fell in love with it from there. And that sophomore year was kind of when I decided this is what I want to do. And then I had that moment of panic where I was like, oh, wow, I'm really far behind all those people who have been wanting to do this their whole life. So I really had to like buckle down, like look up the programs. Luckily, like with being pre-pharmacy, a lot of the prerequisite classes were within my course list. So I wasn't too far behind there, but I really had to do a lot of work making up animal experience hours. So I've worked a lot in that animal hospital, especially like on Saturday mornings to like make up the hours and go from there. But I did it. I got into vet school, so it all worked out fine, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely forgot you wanted to be pre-pharmacy. Like I don't know. I just feel like that, I guess you were so maybe just passionate about being a veterinarian once you figured it out that I just forgot about that completely. What made you change your mind?
I just I liked the uniqueness of every day. As a vet, like every day is something different. It's always a challenge. Not that being a pharmacist isn't, but then I was also like, as a veterinarian, I will also be a pharmacist. I'm also going to be, the therapist for the client. It's like a lot, it's a lot more than just one thing. Like you really have to wear a lot of hats as a veterinarian, from like confidant to doctor to pharmacist to, in my case, teacher to leader. So it's like a job that encompasses a lot of other jobs.
Yeah, I can see that. That makes a lot of sense. Oh, one thing I was curious about as well. So you're talking about having to have extracurricular activities while you were in your vet school. So what did that look like for you?
So I guess my big extracurricular was I was a director for what we call the Southside Healthy Pet Clinic. So in Ithaca, there's a community center called the Southside Community Center where they provide a lot of great services for low income residents of the town. So every Wednesday, we would have a clinic where the first and second year veterinary students got the chance to practice doing physical exams, giving vaccines, talking to clients, all while providing low cost care for the local pets. So it was like $20 to get in. They got an exam, they got vaccines, they got preventatives, which, it's a really great deal. And so I was in charge of running those clinics, getting like the clinicians to come, getting all the products ordered, And then also teaching the students. So it was a really early experience for me teaching. I was like a second year vet student. I was teaching first and second years. And it was kind of crazy. Like if they couldn't draw blood, then I had to go and draw the blood. Like I was like the backup person. So it was just like a lot of responsibility, but it was a really great experience. It was really great helping people and also helping my fellow classmates get that experience that's so important early on in our education.
Yeah. Yeah, that definitely sounds like it. So with working with animals, what is that like? I mean, how do you feel about working with them on a daily basis? Like, is it ever frustrating or aggravating or anything?
I would say overall, I love it. It's really nice because I don't have a dog, so I kind of get my doggy fix for the day when I'm working with my patients. Like, overall, most of the animals I work with are truly lovely to work with. They're really well behaved and you know, fine to examine. And there are some cases where animals are nervous in the hospital and or they're not socialized properly and they can be aggressive and it is a dangerous profession. I would say like human doctors, I guess they do have to worry sometimes about getting injured, but we commonly, have to worry about getting bit, getting scratched and there's a whole lot of other, risks with it as well, like potential for rabies exposure and other diseases. So in that aspect it can be a little scary, but overall we have a lot of really good protocols. Our technicians are often really great at like getting muzzles on pets and restraining them appropriately. So overall I don't really get frustrated with my pets too much, as long as everyone is like being safe and owners are understanding that like we might not be able to do everything with the temperament of their pet, then usually everything's okay.
Yeah, I imagine maybe it's easier to get frustrated with the humans than the animals.
Yeah, it can be a little frustrating when like, things have been going on for a long time and then people decide that like 5 o'clock on a Friday is when we wanted to work up our vomiting for the last 6 months. So yeah, that can be a little frustrating, but we're just here to serve our pets and our clients.
Yeah. Do you get emotional when an animal is sick or dies in your care?
Yeah, it's definitely tough. I think, vet school prepares you as much as they can, but a big part of our job is euthanasia. And that's not something that I really had done before graduating and something I was very nervous about, just, because it's a big deal. We have a lot of power as veterinarians and I guess I was always nervous, like that, someone would ask me to euthanize their pet and I wouldn't agree or, I wouldn't feel comfortable doing it. But I think kind of what I've learned is learning my own comfort level and always like realizing that I can say no if I don't agree or what have it. But so far, it's been fine and it's sad, but it's also, clients are very grateful and appreciative of, us performing that service for them. So it can be tough. It can be tough, having to do a euthanasia and then going into the room and seeing a puppy the next visit, that can be kind of emotionally taxing, but it's been okay so far.
Yeah, what are some of your strategies to, I guess, or for self-care or just kind of mentally prepare yourself for that kind of, I guess, up and down?
Yeah, so I think like knowing like when work is done to kind of try to turn off my brain, which I'm not the best about. And also, we're on call for our pets. So we have to keep our cell phones on, and answer calls about our pets, but like trying to really decompress when I'm home and really try to be present with my husband and my pets and relax. I also, in the pandemic, decided to use my stimulus check to buy a spin bike. I call it my Peloton, it's my fake Peloton. So I tried to, use that as kind of an outlet whenever I can and when I'm feeling stressed and overwhelmed. So those have been kind of my coping techniques.
Nice. Uh, what's the weirdest thing you've encountered on the job?
So I actually saw this question on your list and I was like, I don't know what I'm going to put for this, but I actually had a case over the weekend that answered this question. And I was like, okay, well, this is kind of good. So I don't know if you're familiar like with a gastric dilatation and volvulus. It's like a GDV. It's like when their dog's stomach flips, like I think Marley and me, his stomach flipped. So It's a condition where basically the stomach kind of fills up with gas and then rotates in on itself. And it's really common in dogs, especially like large breed dogs like Great Danes and Goldens and Labs and stuff. But I actually had a case of it in a guinea pig, which is like super rare and crazy. So that was kind of like the craziest thing. And I was like, there's no way this is like what it is, but it totally looks like it. And so I called up the exotics doctor and I was like, hey, you want to take a look at this? And she was like, yeah, that's a GDV. We're going to surgery. So they went to surgery on a guinea pig to fix it, which is crazy.
Wow. So what do they like flip the stomach over? I'm sure it's more complicated than that.
Yeah, basically, like we're not sure if it like fills up with air and then flips or what, but yeah, basically the stomach like twists on itself and then so it gets obstructed.
And you just have to like reposition it, I guess.
Yeah, you kind of have to like derotate it and then like decompress the gas or whatever's in it, and then you can do a gastropexy where you tack the stomach to the body wall so it won't flip again.
Oh, wow. So, last question about work. What is a you said, I know you said every day is kind of different, but what generally is a day in the life like for you, and how has the pandemic affected it?
So yeah, again, it depends on like what service I'm specifically on. So I actually just came off of overnight ER, which was crazy. So for that, I would come in at 7 p.m. and I would see emergency cases as the clinician, and I would also have some students with me until midnight to help me out. And I would just see cases, and I'm a baby doctor, so I still have to present all my cases to a faculty member whose like service it applies to, or the ER clinician who's with me. And then we just go ahead and treat all the patients. And then at midnight, all the doctors leave, and it's just me by myself taking care of all the animals in the ER and then also all the animals in the hospital. So commonly I would be, treating patients in the ER, and then I'd get a call from ICU saying they need me to go over and take a look at this patient because it's not doing well or something. So that's kind of what my day would look like from there. And then I would get off around 7 a.m. I'd have to round all the doctors on the patients in the hospital and kind of how they were doing overnight, answer questions. And then I have intern rounds at 8 a.m. So I would go to intern rounds where we get extra teaching rounds and lessons. And then I would go home and sleep the rest of the day. So that's kind of what like ER overnight looks like. But then just regular rotations is usually come in around 7 a.m., check on all our patients that are in the hospital, go to rounds throughout the morning, and then just see cases. And I'm on oncology right now, so it's a lot more relaxed. I usually only have like 1 or 2 patients a day, but it's a lot involved, a lot of blood work and taking samples of things and imaging and all kinds of crazy stuff like that. And then discharging them and then checking on our patients again before we go home to start all over again the next day.
Yeah, that's a pretty tough schedule, but it sounds like kind of the medical profession is like that.
Yeah, I think they tell you like on average you work like 60 to 70 hours a week as an intern. So I would say that's pretty accurate.
Yeah. So yeah, outside of all that, what do you do to decompress?
Well, so we are big TV people. We like to watch a lot of TV in our off time, and we also like to go hiking. So our favorite thing to do on the weekends is to go hiking, and then we'll go to like a brewery afterwards and just kind of hang out, listen to some live music. So it's kind of our things that we like to do when we're actually off at the same time and together.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So yeah, speaking of you and your husband, you got married recently. So what made you decide to go ahead and do that?
So we actually got engaged my second year of vet school. So we had been engaged for like 2.5 years, and we were planning on getting married in July of 2021. But with the pandemic and everything going on, we decided to push the big ceremony to next year, but we still wanted to get married. So we actually convinced my husband's dad to become licensed to marry people. And we had a cute little wedding in my hometown with just very close family and friends. We really just kind of wanted to be married. We had been engaged for so long, and also with us both finishing school up, we kind of just wanted to be married just so we could have each other on each other's insurances and such. So
Yeah, those kind of things make sense. Do you feel like marriage has changed anything between the two of you?
I mean, not really. I mean, we had been together for so long, and honestly, we've known each other for a pretty long time. So not really. I mean, we just made a pretty big move to Georgia to start my job and his job. So that's been kind of an adjustment, but overall, just being together, not really. We've been doing well. So I'm very happy with married life so far.
Are y'all happy to be back down south?
Yes, I have consumed a very large amount of Chick-fil-A that I am not proud of, but I was making up for lost time. So I definitely miss that. And the warm weather has also been very nice. So
Yeah. And how are your cats doing?
they're good. So we've been living in an apartment in New York, and we actually were able to afford to rent a house, which has been very nice and very adult. And the cats love the house. They run around the house, and especially going up and down the stairs. So they're thrilled.
Oh, I bet. And in general, what's your favorite animal?
I'm a big fan of beluga whales, and we actually went to the aquarium in Atlanta, and I got to see them there, and it was super cool.
It's a great aquarium. Yeah. What are you like currently reading or listening to?
So when I saw this question on the list, I was actually like, Rachel's gonna be super disappointed in me because I really haven't been reading like independently. Just with work, I've been reading a lot of like papers on how well this treatment works in dogs and cats, but not like reading super much because I'm kind of tired of reading at the end of the day. But my husband is super into audiobooks. And so when we're driving in the car, we'll often listen to like audiobooks. And we've actually been listening to like the Sherlock Holmes like short stories because they're like perfect for like a short car ride. So that's what I've been listening to lately, but not really reading too much.
Yeah, no, I mean, I totally get that. I've had periods of my life where I'm like, I just don't read anything. And then like maybe on like school break or something, I read a bunch or something. So no disappointment. I get it. Are there like I saw this, I read this question somewhere and I kind of liked it. Are there like books that have been so good to your soul that you've given them to others other over and over again, or like recommended them to a bunch to people over and over?
I was really into like the Hunger Games. I think that was one that I recommended a lot. And then Pride and Prejudice. I've also been a big fan of that book. So those are my big ones that I was a fan of. I think they're a little cliche, but also a big fan of them. So
Yeah, I mean, I feel like sometimes if it's like cliche, I mean, there's a reason for it. Like I mean, those are some of my favorites too. So, yeah, last question. What's a small detail that you love about yourself that people might not know?
so I was like super into baking like in high school, but not so much cooking. But I've kind of like just really gotten into both a little bit more, and I've been making a lot of really good dinners and baked desserts and such. So that's kind of my secret that I'm now sharing with more people. And I've been making a lot of desserts for my vet students, and they seem to enjoy it. So definitely going to keep up with that.
Yay. Yeah, I realized that more and more is just like being an adult is like, yeah, I'm pretty insecure about my cooking abilities, but then people just really appreciate like a home cooked meal or dessert or whatever it is. It's just like I think people appreciate the love you put into it or the care. Well, it's been really great catching up with you, Nicole. Thanks for coming on the show. And it's been really interesting. Like I learned so much about what you do. And that's kind of the whole point of this is like just learning about what people I know do.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss a single show. Interested in being on the show? Know someone that might be a good fit? Use the nomination form in the description.